Guys, we got the ultimate battle here with the Canon R8 and the A7CII. This one's just slightly overexposed right now, but this is both set at 1.8. They both have 35mm lenses on them, and they're both set in about as close a position as I can get them. All right, so we're going to go through this. We're going to check the low light situation the best we can, and we're going to see what these look like together, which one can hold its own. First time we're going to do it in standard mode, okay? Straight out of camera, standard mode. If you turn it on, you put it on standard mode and just kind of set your settings. We're at 24 frames per second, 50 shutter speed on there, and that's where we're going to go. So this is the Canon. How does this look right now? Pretty much straight out of camera once you set your shutter speed, your ISO, and your aperture. And this is the A7C II. How does this look? All right. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to move this up and we're going to check out these ISOs and get a feel for which one is going to be better in low light of these two sensors. Let's go. All right, guys, this is 800 ISO on both of these cameras, straight out of camera. Now this is not low light really yet at all. This is 800 standard color profile, and we're letting them auto white balance today. They look about the same on the white balance, but this is 800 ISO, so this is definitely perfectly usable. And I'll throw some commentary on there after I look at these. This is 800 ISO. Let's go ahead and we'll move this up to 3200 ISO and start getting into more treacherous territory. Usually 3200 ISO, they're pretty good too, without any issues. But we'll go ahead and test above that and as well and see where we go from there. All right, guys, now we're sitting at 3200 ISO on both of these. Of course, I'm doing the shutter speed, so it's going to be a little funky wonky, but we'll go. I didn't want to adjust the lights. I want to keep the lights the same so we can kind of keep that constant and just adjust the shutter speed. So, whoa, it's going to look a little weird. But we're not looking at motion blur, right? Because we know that's going to be good as long as you set your settings right. We're looking at ISO, okay? So, 3200 ISO. How does this look, guys? R8, A7C II. All right, guys, now we got 6400 shutter speed, which is pretty wild. Now we're at ISO 8000 on these bad boys. Now we're going to kind of go into the black there and look at the black. We're going to zoom in that. Look, see what you think. See what you think, guys. How does this compare? 8,000 ISO. I mean, 12,800 is probably the highest you're going to go anyway, but, you know, it is what it is. I want to test it out and see what it looks like. So there's 8,000 ISO, guys. Now we're going to crank this up, and we're going to go up to 12,800. Okay, guys, these are both on 12,800 ISO. Of course, they look good on the screen, so I really can't tell on the screen. So I'm going to have to give you some commentary on this, the voiceover. But this is, they're both at the maxed out shutter speed of 1/8000 and 12,800 ISO. How does this look? All right. Is there a big difference? Because there is a big difference in price, right? I'll tell you right now, when I get down to the end, we'll kind of go over the price and we'll see what bang for the dollar is the best for you. Because with the lenses, a lot more lenses on the Sony. But we'll look at that. We'll digest that. But I had to get this test out with the R8 and the A7CII because this is like I gotta know. Okay, guys, these are both on 12,800 ISO. Of course, they look good on the screen, so I really can't tell on the screen. So I'm gonna have to give you some commentary on this, the voiceover. But this is, they're both at the maxed out shutter speed of 1/8000 and 12,800 ISO. How does this look? All right. Is there a big difference? Because there is a big difference in price. So you're looking at around $700, $800 at least of a difference. And I got to say the A7C II is a little cleaner, but come on, guys, this is 300%, right? And 12,800 ISO. So as far as the low light, I don't think it's worth justification, but it is better a little bit on the A7C II, just so you know. But I mean, it's all personal preference. I mean, if you're going to shoot a little more low light, it's just a little bit different grain on the R8. It's a little more I don't know, it's got that, color rendition thing, those little color artifacts. But for the most part, 12,800 is about as high as you want to go with either one. So at that point, but they're both good. But A7C II is. We're going to test these here at starting out at 3200 ISO, because anything below that, I mean, you're really not going to. It's going to look fine on the logs of these. So we've got C-Log 3, just slightly overexposed on the Canon, and 1.3 overexposed on the C-Log on the A7C II. You're supposed to overexpose it a bit, between usually around 1.7 or so. So just slightly overexposed on there. But how does S-Log on the A7C II look, and C-Log 3 on the R8? Haven't really used C-Log much on here, so I found it interesting. I'm going to give this a shot and see what C-Log looks like. But we saw the standards, right? And I usually use A7CII on the A7C II, but I wanted to just kind of straight out of the camera standard and then go into the logs, the two extremes. Obviously, we'd have to be all here all day if we tested every single thing, but this is 3200 ISO on both of them. It should still look pretty clean yet, but we're gonna bump this up, and we're gonna see what that looks like compared to each other in log. Now, of course, that you can color grade these according to your liking. So the colors, you can push and play those. But how does the image look? The image itself, right? I mean, if you're going to be doing log, then you have to do color grading. That's just basically all there is to it. So it's going to be your preference. But I just wanted to see how if one was easier than the other, and I'll let you know at the end of this what I think just was easier to edit right out of camera. So, all right, guys, let's go to the next one. All right, guys, now we're at 8,000 ISO on both of these bad boys. We're around the 3200 mark-ish shutter speed. But I wanted to kind of keep the apertures at 1.8 the best I could. That way they're directly comparable. All right, so this is 8,000 ISO. And again, I got to overexpose on the S-Log 3. So I can, the shutter speed is actually slightly lower because I'm overexposing a little bit more on the S-Log 3 versus the Canon. But anyways, all right, so this is 8,000 ISO, and we're going to kick this up to 12,800 and see what that's all about. All right, but this is 8,000 ISO on Canon R8 and the A7C II. And we are now at 12,800 on both of these cameras. So if this is usable, what do you think? Which one looks better to you? You know what I mean? Which one looks better to you guys? The Canon R8 or the A7C II? Does it really matter? What do you think? 12,800. This is as high as I'm going to go. I'm not going to go any higher because, bottom line, I'm not going to use it higher than this. And you probably aren't either. And if you do, it's going to be a little on both. But this is as far as like expected usable image quality, like right out in the field on C-Log or S-Log 3. I think 12,800 is where, obviously on the ZVE1 or the FX3, 12,800 is the base, the second base. So it can go higher. But for all most use case purposes, this is going to be more than good enough for most people. So what do you think? All right, I'm going to add some commentary here at the end and let you know what I think. Let me know my thoughts on this. But this is 12,800, guys, on these two. Is it usable? All right, guys, again, here we have 12,800 ISO, zoomed in at 250%. And again, you can see the A7C II is noticeably better. Is it going to be worth it for you to pay that much more for that little bit better low light? But the Canon R8 is no slouch on low light. It's going to blow away the A7, like even the ZVE10 II in low light at 12,800. But compared to the A7C II, which is A7 IV sensor, it's a beast. It's really good. So it is better. Is it that much more? I mean, is it worth to pay that much more for just that little bit of extra low light? Because you can see the green is more prominent on the Canon R8 as well as the color artifacts. But, you can adjust that in post if you want to. But there you go. I mean, Is it worth paying $800 more for that? If you're going to be at lower ISOs, you won't notice the difference. But at least there it is in front of you. It's a little better, obviously, on the A7C II. All right, guys, I want to do one more here. This is the faithful picture profile on the Canon R8 versus the A7CII on the A7C II. So this is kind of what I use with this, the A7C II. This is generally where I go with Sony A7CII. And this is faithful on the Canon R8. Now let me say this. Okay, so the Canon R8, the screen is better. Obviously, it's just better. Viewfinder is a little better, I find. Seems a little better. But now the price. Now let's look at the price. Now, depending on the image quality, I personally feel that you're really not going to be able to tell them much apart, honestly, to be honest with you. But the thing is, you can get the Canon R8, the 16 millimeter. I got, look at this. The 16 millimeter, the 50 millimeter, the 35 millimeter, and the Canon R8, if you buy them used, for the same price as just the A7C II. So that's something to consider, right? That is definitely something to consider. If you've got the A7C II, just the body alone, you can get the R8 with 3 lenses for the same price, or maybe even less. That's that's buying the A7C II used. If you don't, then you can get a whole more lenses. Problem is, with the Canon R8, is the lens selection, right? That's where the problem is, because there's no viable 2.8 zooms under $1,000. However, if you are a prime shooter, you like primes. If 16 is good enough, a 16, a 28, a 35, a 50, and an 85, those are all good. If that's all you need for what you do, then then you're good to go. Honestly, I mean, you're good to go. So bang for dollar, I say the Canon R8 is by far a better deal, bang for dollar. But the Sony, I mean, if you want lens selections, and I think the menus in the Sonys, I think I'm just a little bit used to it. I think it's a little more intuitive, but the Canons you catch on to them pretty quick. So all in all, if you're starting out, if you've got $1,500 tops or less, I would even recommend the R8 over the ZV-E10 II, because that's $1,000. You can get the R8 used for the same price, and you're in full frame, right? And you can get the cheap 50, the cheap 16, and vlog with it, which R8 looks great vlogging with. It really does. And enhanced stabilization looks great, and it works good. So bang for dollar, I think the R8 is still the best deal now, because they dropped the price, right? And you can get it used or refurbished from Canon. $1,000, $1,000. It's the same price as the ZV-E10 II new, right? And that's a good camera too. But if you're just looking at simple, get in, cheap as you can, ZV-E10 with a cheap 16 millimeter 1.4 lens, or you can get the Viltrox. To me, you can buy one of the third-party ones. That's the cheapest way in. But if you want full frame, bang for dollar, cheapest way in, R8 now. It just is. Canon set themselves up for that, right? But if you want the most features in a camera to bang for dollar for the price, I would say that's the S5 Mark II, because then you get the 6K, you get the open gate, you get the full frame, you get the best IBIS in the business, and they've got the general primes you need, and you can get the Sigma 28 to 70 zoom, which I have. If you want one under $1,000, you can do that on the system. But ultimately, that camera, bang for dollar, as far as all those extra features, if you want them for video, is great. I just want to give you an update on what the findings are from operating both of those cameras. Now the cons of the Canon R8 is, first, the battery. That's the main thing. If you could put a dumb-ray battery on it, and if you're having it on a tripod, it won't make a difference. But if you don't, you need at least 2 batteries. That's all there is to it. You've got to have 2 batteries with that thing. That's the main thing. That's the main downside to it. The other downside is overheating. So over a period of time, As you run it, like it didn't overheat on me, of course. I used it for 45 minutes to an I left it around for about 45 minutes to an hour. It didn't overheat, but the overheat warning did go up to like 3 or 4 bars. Probably wouldn't have overheated on me in the studio. It was like 78 degrees in here, so take that as you will, depending on what you use it for. If it's really hot, it will overheat, so it's something you got to watch out for. But it's the same thing with A7C2. Same thing there. It will overheat, but it does have a bigger battery. But is it worth paying $800 more for a battery, for better battery life? I mean, you see the quality. They're extremely comparable. You would not be able to tell the difference one or the other, except the R8 does have 60 frames per second uncropped, which is an advantage over the A7C2. A7C2, will take better photos if that's your thing. I'm not big into photos, but I found S-Log3 easier to edit. However, the Canon Log 3 was fine, but honestly, I just like S-Tone, right? And I thought the standard profile of the Canon right out of camera was fine. Like, didn't need to play with it at all. So that's what I would just stick with. I would just stick with the standard profile. And in most lighting situations, you can see that's the advantage it has over the APS-C is no matter how hard you try, you will get better light performance with the Canon R8 over like the ZV-E10 II, but the ZV-E10 II will give you better battery life. Autofocus is good on both of them, but that's the thing. If you're going to pay $1,000, do you want full frame or do you want to go with the APS-C, which is fine? I mean, I have FX30, works wonderful. I've had the A6700 as well. For YouTube studios, that's all you need. But I kind of like the full frame look here. This is the S5 II that I'm recording on now. And to get the most for your money, I'd say this camera is it. Because it's got the bigger battery. It's got HDMI. It's got 6K. The full-size HDMI, 6K, open gate. It's got all that. It's got way more recording options than you're ever going to need. The 4K 60 is cropped, but whatever. Other than that, it does everything I need to do, and it's got a fan, so it will not overheat. Any of the downsides, any of those cameras have, and it's got dual card slots, if that's important to you. In studio, it's not such a big deal, but I'm just throwing those options out for you. I'd say right now the best bang for your dollar cameras would be the R8 if those primes will work for you, or the S5 II. And if you just want a one and done camera, which literally, if I had this camera, with just this camera, I can do everything I needed, everything, including walking, because the stabilization's better than any of those other cameras too. It just is. I'm not a Sony fanboy or Canon fanboy where I have to have a specific camera. I've owned them all. And I'm just telling you because I've used them all. And best bang for dollar for features is S5 II. But if you want to save a little money, even more, R8 will do you fine. But the battery life, as long as you can work around that and overheating, then you're going to be good. All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know in the comments below if you have any comparisons you want to see or any questions, comments. Happy to hear them. Have a great day, guys. Thanks. Bye.